14.2 is called the flaws of voting methods. We're still talking about the same voting methods that we did in the last lesson, but now we're talking about some of its flaws and fairness and whether it's going to be fair or not. We have these 4 fairness criteria, and these are us trying to determine whether this is fair, whether this is weird, contradictory, what's going on. Something weird happens. First one is called majority criterion. A candidate that receives a majority of first place votes should win the election. Should win the election. So remember, majority is more than half. And that makes sense. If you've got a candidate that receives more than half of the #1 votes, then yeah, I think they should win the election, right? That makes sense. But sometimes that doesn't happen. And it's weird when that doesn't happen, and that's a violation of this criterion. Second one's called head-to-head criterion, aka Condorcet criterion. Remember, head-to-head was when we talked about pairwise comparisons. One-on-one matchups. A candidate who is favored in a one-on-one matchup against every other candidate should win the election. How about we say this? Instead of favored, we say they win. If we go to the gym and all play one-on-one and you play everybody else and you beat everybody else, then you should be declared the champion. Anything else is weird and some sort of contradiction. Third one, monotonicity criterion. Some candidate wins a preliminary election, then some change is made that benefits this candidate, then the same candidate who won the preliminary election should win the subsequent election. Something to notice is the fact that there's a preliminary election is telling us that there's going to be a second election. There's a first vote and something changes and there's a second vote. And that's going to happen on this one as well. Irrelevant alternatives. Back to monotonicity. I want you to write down for monotonicity, gains extra support. You're going to have some kind of preliminary vote, and then something happens to where somebody gets more support, and then maybe that causes them to lose, which is a really weird thing to happen, but it could happen. Irrelevant alternatives criterion. Some candidate wins the preliminary. One or more other candidates are removed from the race. Then the same candidate who won the preliminary election should win the subsequent election. I want you to write down remove a loser. Somebody wins this preliminary vote, and then one of the losing candidates drops out, and for some reason that causes a change at the top. That causes the previous winner to lose the second vote, and that's weird, and that doesn't seem like that should happen, but it could. Number 1, the 11 members of the Board of Trustees of your college must hire a new college president. 4 finalists for the job, E, F, G, and H, are ranked by the 11 members and is shown in the preference table here. The board members agree to use the board account method to determine the winner. So remember, board account is points, right? Points. When there are 4 candidates like this, the first place gets 4, the second place gets 3, and 2, and 1, like so. That's board account. This is a review from last lesson, so I'm going to try to go quickly. Board account, we've got E, F, G, and H. We look at the first 6 people would give 4 points to E. So E, 6 people give 4 points. 3 people give 1 point, and the 2 people at the end give 1 point to E. That adds up to 29 points. Then we look at F. The first 6 people would give F 3 points, and then those 3 people give F 2 points, and then the 2 people at the end give F 4 points. That adds up to 32. G, 6 people give 2, 3 people give 4. 2 people give 3. That adds up to 30. H, first 6 people give 1 point. Then the 3 people give 3 points. And then the 2 at the end give 2 points. Adds up to 19. Highest number is 32. Tells me that F wins board account. Part B says, which of the fairness criteria are violated? Well, notice there was no second vote. So if there's no second vote, then we don't have to think about monotonicity or irrelevant alternatives. Don't even think about them. It might be one of the first two, majority or head-to-head. So let's look at both of them. Majority. What's majority criterion say? Well, majority criterion said a candidate that receives a majority of first place votes should win the election. Well, look, does that happen? First place votes. See how E has 6, G has 3, and F has 2? Well, there were 11 total voters, right? The majority, more than half, is 6. So E wins the majority, right? E wins majority. So majority criterion says that E should win. Should win the election. Majority criterion says E wins the majority, so E should win the election, but we just did board account and found that F wins. Board account violates this majority criterion. Head-to-head. Head-to-head criterion says if somebody wins all of their one-on-one matchups, then they should win the election. So let's look at one-on-ones. 4 candidates. 4 candidates means there are 6 one-on-one matchups we would have to look at. I'm going to zoom this down. E versus F, E versus G, E versus H, F versus G, F versus H, and G versus H. 6. E versus F. E versus F. I see E gets 6 and F gets 3 and 2 more. E is going to win that matchup. E versus G. Well, E has a majority. E has 6 and G has 3 and another 2. E wins. E versus H. Well, E has 6. H has 3 and 2. It doesn't really matter. E wins. Okay. E wins all of its one-on-ones. I don't even really need to do the other 3. I know it doesn't matter because I can already see that E wins all of its one-on-one matchups. And so head-to-head criterion says if somebody wins all of their one-on-one matchups, then they should win the election. That's what it says. All right. E wins all of its one-on-one matchups, but oops, F wins the board account. This is a violation. Okay. This violates that criterion. E should win. And how would you feel? You just beat everybody in the class in one-on-one, and then for some reason somebody else is the champion. That doesn't make any sense. E should win, but Borda says F does. Borda violates head-to-head criterion. That's pretty much how all of these problems are going to work. Number 2, 22 people are asked to taste test and rank 3 different brands, A, B, and C, of tuna fish. The results are shown in this table. Find the winner using plurality. Well, plurality, remember, was number 1 votes. That's the easiest one. You've got A, B, and C. A has 8, number 1 votes. B has 4, number 1 votes. And C has 6 plus 4 is 10, number 1 votes. We can see pretty quickly that C wins by plurality. Most number 1 votes. B, find the winner using the pairwise comparison method. Well, there's only 3 candidates. 3 choose 2 is 3. That means there's only 3 one-on-one matchups. Makes sense. A versus B. A versus C. B versus C. That's 3. So we look at the one-on-one matchups. A versus B. A is going to get 8, and B has 6. A has 4. B has 4. That's 12 to 10. A wins. A point. A versus C. A gets 8. C gets 6. C gets 4. A gets 4. That's 12 to 10 again. A wins. A point. B versus C. B gets 8. C gets 6. C gets 4. B gets, that's 12 to 10 again. B wins. Okay. But I didn't really care about that last one because I can already tell, you know, A wins. A wins all of its matchups, right? A scoreboard. A has 2. B has 1. C has 0. A wins. Pairwise comparison. Which, if any, of the fairness criteria are violated. All right, so once again, there's not a second vote, so I don't have to worry about those last 2. Monotonicity, irrelevant alternatives, they're not going to apply here, but maybe the other 2. So majority says if somebody wins a majority of the first place votes, then they should win. So 8 plus 6, 14, 18, 22. 22, half that's 11, majority makes 12. Majority is 12. Nobody has that. Nobody has a majority, so we can't possibly violate that majority criterion. Don't even have to worry about it. It doesn't apply. So what about head-to-head? Okay. Head-to-head says if somebody wins all of their matchups, then they should win. Well, did somebody win all their one-on-ones? A did. A beat B, A beat C. A won all of their one-on-one matchups. A should win. Oops. But plurality said that C wins. Okay? Plurality violates the head-to-head criterion. A won all one-on-one matchups. So A should have won. That's what that says. Number 3. 58 members of the Student Activity Council are meeting to elect a keynote speaker to launch Student Involvement Week. Choices are Bill Gates, Howard Stern, or Oprah Winfrey. A straw vote, preliminary, is taken. After a heated debate, all but 8 students vote in the exact same way. The 8 voters that voted GWS in the straw vote all changed to WGS for the final vote. So the first thing you should notice is there's 2 votes. There's a vote, and then there's a second vote. So that's kind of key. Using plurality with elimination method, which speaker wins the straw vote? Plurality is number 1 votes. But elimination, remember that was biggest loser. That's the hardest one for students to remember. Plurality with elimination. Which speaker wins the straw vote? So there's only 3 candidates, W, G, and S. We're talking about plurality, so we're talking about number 1 votes. W has 20. G has 14 plus 8 is 22. S has 16. Who's the biggest loser? S, right? S is the biggest loser. S is the biggest loser. So you look at those 16 voters, and you're like, well, we're going to eliminate S. And who do those 16 voters throw their votes to? Well, if they can't vote for S, they're voting for W, right? So their new number 1 is W. We're gonna give those 16 votes to W. That's 36. And once you get down to 2 candidates, you don't really have to think anymore. It's just whoever has more. But the majority has been reached. That adds up to what? 58 total. Yeah, 58 members. Half that's 29. You need 30 to get a majority, right? So as long as you get a majority, as soon as you get a majority, we know the winner, and W wins the straw vote. So again, it says after a heated debate, all but 8 students vote in the exact same way. The 8 voters that voted GWS, they're talking about these right here, all changed to WGS for the final vote. So if you noticed, like they all changed to do what these 20 did, WGS. That's why this number right here is now 28, because those 8 voters voted with the 20, so now it's 28. Which speaker wins the final vote? So let's do the same thing. Plurality with elimination. W has 28 first place votes. S has 16. And G has 14. Biggest loser looks like G this time, right? G. So these 14 votes are going to get thrown to somebody else. We're eliminating G. Remove the biggest loser. G is out. Those 14 voters would now prefer S as their new number 1. So we're going to throw those 14 votes to S, and that adds up to 30. 30 is a majority. 30 is bigger than 28. S wins the final vote. And that's weird if you think about it, okay? If you think about what happens, W started off with 20 votes. Some kind of change caused them to get 28 votes. They got more support. They gained support, which, if any of the fairness criteria are violated, it's the one that talks about gained extra support. Gains extra support. This is monotonicity criterion. Monotonicity criterion is violated. W gains support, but loses the final vote. It's kind of weird. Kind of weird that that could happen. Now, if you want to think about the irrelevant alternatives criterion, it's kind of tricky here, but that doesn't actually apply in this case. Irrelevant alternatives is when somebody drops out. You remove a loser. And if you think about it, nobody dropped out of the race. Yes, I know I eliminated a candidate, but that's just how you do the plurality with the elimination. Nobody dropped out. It was still those same three candidates, W, G, and S. Nobody dropped out. Nobody was removed. So irrelevant alternatives does not apply. Number 4. 4 candidates, E, F, G, and H, are running for mayor of Metro City. Preliminary results are shown in the preference table to the right. Using pairwise comparison, who wins the preliminary? Okay, pairwise comparison, one-on-one matchups. I see 4 candidates, 4 choose 2 equals 6, tells me there are 6 one-on-ones. E versus F, E versus G, E versus H, F versus G, F versus H, G versus H. That's 6. So we just go through and do what we already know how to do. E has the first 100, then F has, oh wait, that was 160, wasn't it? E has the first 160, F has 100, E gets 80, and 20 more. E wins that one. E wins a point. E versus G. E has the first 160, G gets the 100, E gets 80, I already know it's going to win. E gets this 20, E wins a point. E versus H, you get 160, and H gets 100, H gets this 80, H gets this 20, that's 200 to 160, H wins a point there. F versus G. F versus G. F gets 160, G gets 100, G gets 80, F gets 20. That's 180 to 180. That's a tie. Remember, if it's a tie, both get 1/2. It's half to half. That's board account. 4, 3, 2, 1 is points. That's board account. Pairwise comparison is just using these numbers. Okay? F versus H. F versus H. F gets 160. F gets 100. F's going to win. H gets 80. H gets 20. F wins a point. G versus H. G gets 160. G gets 100. G's going to win. H gets 80. H gets 20. G wins a point. Scoreboard. E, F, G, H. E has a point. E gets another point. H gets a point. F gets a half. G gets a half. F gets a point. G gets a point. Looks like E wins with 2 points. E wins. They didn't win all of them, but they won. If they don't win all of them, then head-to-head criterion does not apply. Keep that in mind. Right before the actual election, candidates F and G are both caught in scandals and withdraw from the race. All voters decide to vote the same as before, except F and G are removed. Complete a new preference table with only E and H in the race. So F and G are gone. Whoops. F and G are gone. F, 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 G. So what's left is EH, HE, HE, HE. Removed 2 people that didn't win. We removed 2 losers. Using the pairwise comparison method, who wins the election after F and G drop out? Well, there's only 2 candidates, so 2 choose 2 equals 1. There's only one way to do this. E versus H. E has 160. H has 100. 80 and 20. Ooh, H is going to win. H wins. Okay, that's weird. That's weird because E was ahead, E won, and then we removed some people that should have been irrelevant alternatives. Those losers shouldn't have mattered at all, but removing those losers caused the results to change. Which of the fairness criteria are violated? Well, that's the one that talks about irrelevant alternatives, removing a loser